All right, looks like we are live on Facebook. If you guys will give me 1 second to set up my cameras and start YouTube, then we will get going here. Okay, looks like that's going. Now I can't, we'll do comments at the end, so everyone who's hopping on, just bear with me 1 second and we'll be good to go. All right, looks like YouTube is getting started. This one is really important and probably the most helpful success productivity hack that I have. So of course, there's been like a million tech issues this morning. That's called resistance, right? Anytime you're about to do something important, everything goes wrong. So no big thing, just keep on keeping on, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start on Facebook. I'm not really sure what's happening with YouTube, but like I said, if it's important, then everything will go wrong, right? Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in. And if you are on Facebook, I won't be able to see your comments till the end. Hello, everyone on YouTube. I should be able to see your comments as we go. So guys, we've been talking about priorities. We've been talking about doing our best work and giving our best selves to 2017, right? And not giving up on our goals and sticking with what we said we were going to do, like our New Year's resolutions and all of that. And what I want to talk to you about today is how to figure out what's important, because I've had a lot of people who are like, well, because I've talked about, one of our past videos was all about you need to be doing the most important work, right? Not the peripheral stuff, not the stuff that's fun or the things that feel like work but aren't really work. And a lot of people ask me, well, how am I supposed to know which is the best? How am I supposed to know what I should prioritize? Because, for example, let's say that you are trying to write your book, okay? Well, a lot of different sources might say a lot of different things as to what's step one and what's step two and what's going to move you the furthest, the fastest, right? Or you're trying to lose weight. We all know there's like 8 million different diet plans and each one's supposed to be better than the other. And so let's say you're trying to move ahead in your career, you want to get promoted. There's lots of different things. One of the things about like today's world I feel like we live in, there's so many options. Like we could do anything at any moment. There's a million things we could do. And so how do we know which one's right? That's what I'm going to tell you about today. I hope you're excited. Again, if you are leaving comments, I don't think I'll be able to see the comments until the end, but I would like, especially if you're on YouTube, I would love for you to share this on Twitter because I don't know what that looks like. So if one of you guys could share this on Twitter, I'd love to see what that looks like in the Twitter stream because I've been trying to figure that out. If you're on Facebook, obviously you can share to your news feed and that would be awesome because guys, we are getting technical today. We are breaking it down. No more spinning your wheels. No more doing 5,000 things and not seeing results. And so what we're going to talk about today is how I prioritize things. This is my own personal chart, okay? Because a lot of times the things that we love to do, we spend our time doing, even though they may not necessarily be the best investment. On the other hand, we spend a lot of time and energy on something because we know we're supposed to invest there. And we think, well, technically this is free and technically this only takes me an hour, but you actually hate doing it. Like you hate it. That's the example I gave in yesterday's video is that I used to sit at the beginning of the week on a Sunday or a Monday and I would schedule my tweets for Twitter for, to try and keep my social media marketing growing, to grow my brand and promote the show and my book and all that stuff. And so I would sit there and technically it was only 2 hours a week, right? That's not that big of a deal. Technically it was free other than manpower on my part. It didn't cost anything to schedule tweets in a free program. And technically I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. I hated it. Every week I was just like, ugh. I dreaded it. I put it off. So a lot of times when people are tracking things and activities that they're doing and they think about how much investment is this really taking me, you're only thinking about the investment of time and the investment of money. And you're not thinking about the investment of, like your heart and soul, like your morale, whether you can keep on keeping on. What I want for 2017 is to help you guys to not give up on your mission. And a lot of times it's only 1 or 2 additions that take us to the point of unbelievable overwhelm and we shut down and we give up. Because we've all been there. Like we had our goal, on January 1st, and we've already given up what's today? It's not even March yet, and a lot of us have given up, okay? So, I think now I'll be able to see Facebook comments as soon as we wrap up today's tip. But this is a little bit technical, so I really want you guys to listen and focus, and then I want you to ask me your questions, okay? I'm like really distracted by my hair. I'm sorry. It's really distracted me. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to look like a mess today. Like I said, everything went wrong this morning because this one is really important. All right, so here's the thing, you guys. I don't want you to keep spending your time and energy and morale and money, even if you have an assistant or you outsource some things, that's money that you're spending on the wrong things. And the only way this works for me is to put it on pen and paper in black and white and to use numbers. Because I don't know about you, but I'm very emotionally invested in my work. This is a mission for me. Breaking down success for us and fulfilling my calling, that is a mission. And so I'm really emotional. All my emotions are all tied up in this, right? So it's hard for me to just say, I'm going to stop doing Facebook. Like I stopped doing quick pep talks, It was hard for me to just be like, I'm going to stop doing quick pep talks because I like it. But on paper, if it's not moving me towards my goal, if I could look at it in black and white on a sheet, I'm like, okay, I'm letting this go. Because I can see right now it did not score high enough to keep it. Are you guys getting this? So if you're like me and you tend to spin your wheels, so I wanted to tell you there's really 3 steps. And the third step is the technical one. The first step is to stop researching so much. A lot of times we're spinning our wheels because we spend way too much time researching. We have all this information at our fingertips, so we think we have to go get all of it. No, you don't. You're probably perfectly educated at this point to make informed decisions and start hustling towards your goal. No more research. The second one is to stop comparing ourselves to others. So another huge one when it comes to spinning our wheels is that we see someone, for me, for example, I want to move into traditional, so to speak, broadcast television with my show or a version of my show. Now, there's a million different ways to do that. If I start researching people, some people build up their YouTube channel. Some people become a news anchor. Some people, become a producer and they produce for a long time and then they train. Like there's so many different ways to do it. And so then I get really bogged down in all of those different methods and I get discouraged because it seems like everyone else is succeeding but me. Anybody else? Can I get an amen? So step 2 is to stop comparing yourself to other people who have achieved what you want to achieve. Step 3 is to measure. That's what we're talking about today. So let me explain to you guys how I do this, okay? So I have a chart, and what I do is I put the items. Well, first I put what the goal is. So let's say your goal is to grow your brand because you are going to launch your first book. Okay, I know a lot of people who follow me are writers, so I feel like this is a pretty good example. So your goal is to grow your brand, okay? Then the next thing you need to put is how are you measuring return on investment? So right now, what you may want to have for your goal is you may want for people to increase your social media numbers. So you may want, increased followers on Facebook, increased YouTube subscribers, it may be, or you may just care about growing your email subscriber list. So all you care about is how many email subscribers you have on your email list, okay? So you have to define that before you do the exercise or else it won't work. And remember, if you're getting confused or bogged down, stick with me and I'm going to answer your questions at the end. So whatever your return is that you're measuring, that's what you're going to put next. And you're going to think about that. Then you're going to put all the different tactics that you use to do what your goal is. So if your goal is to grow your platform as an author, your tactics would be Twitter, Facebook, email marketing, weekly blogs, maybe you do daily Instagrams and a weekly live stream, all of those things, that's what you're going to list here. Okay, then you're going to score each one, and I recommend that you go down each thing one at a time based on effort, and then go down one at a time based on investment, and then go down one at a time based on return. So for example, I put the way I measure this. Now you're going to need to download the chart. Okay, the chart is there for you free, thepursuit.tv/productivity. I'll put it in the comments. But what I want to talk to you about today is just figuring out a system for measuring. So for me, my system is if something is really great, it scores a 9. So that means it's very little effort would be +3. A lot of effort would be -3. Okay, then you're talking about investment. So not very much investment of money and time would be +3. That's great. If it's a lot of investment and a lot of money and a lot of time, that would be -3. Okay, and then the return on that investment is reversed, which is what hurts your brain, but this is how it works for me. So you might have to figure out your own system. But if it's not very good return on investment, I would do a -3. And if it's a great return on investment, I would do a +3. So the ideal score is 9. Does that make sense to you guys? I know this kind of hurts my brain. And it's hard for you to see without having your own chart. But here's what this does, is that once you go through and you do each one, go through each one and think, okay, how much effort, morale, mental effort, emotional effort. After I do this task, do I feel energized or do I feel depleted? Do I love it? Do I hate it? So go through and do how much effort is it really taking me, and do that for Twitter, for Facebook, for your weekly blog post, for a weekly live stream. Go down every single one. Then the next thing, go down every single one and think, okay, how much investment of time, because time is money, how much investment of money, or how much investment my team is putting in, because that's money and time as well if your assistant does it or if you hire a VA to do it. So you're going to go down and do investment. Again, you're going to go through each one. How much investment does Twitter? How much investment is my weekly live stream? And an example for that might be, you have to, if you really want to do your live stream well, you have to buy software. You have to buy new cameras. You have to buy some lights. Okay, so that's some number investment, and you need to make sure you're taking that into account. This is one time, guys, you have to be cutthroat. It is hard for me to detach, but I have to. I have to really detach and think, Kelsey, when it comes to, I'll give you an example. So Success for the Rest of Us Live, what we're doing today. I put effort was +2. So that's a good score. Not very hard for me to get on and do this because I've already written out the content. This is stuff I know really well. I already have all the cameras and all the lights, okay? And then investment, again, it scored +2 because I already have everything. I had to buy 1 or 2 apps for $5. $10, that's barely anything. But it does take 30 minutes a week, so that's why it didn't score a 3. It only scored a 2. And then the return on investment, I gave it a +2, which is a good score for investment or for return, because live still gets a lot of juice in Facebook. And I know that you guys love talking to me one-on-one. So it's really good audience connection, and it's really good after the fact. People always go and watch and comment, and I feel like there's a lot of good juju about it. Even though for my goal, which is getting me closer to a TV deal, email list growth, and social growth, not very often does someone go from a live stream and subscribe to my email list, okay? But overall, I think over time that person will subscribe to my email list after watching and investing some of these live streams and working, feeling like they know me and me answering their questions, okay? So that scored a 6. A 6 out of 9. That's pretty good. Let me give you an example of something that scored really low. Again, Twitter scored really low. Effort was a 1, so not that bad, but not that great either, because I still have to think through tweets. Tweets have to be short, and you don't want to seem like you're being too self-promotional. And you also I work with my assistant, and I now have a social media intern, and it's just like a lot of brain thoughts. So I didn't score it very high. Investment, I put -1 because social media is a huge part of my VA and my intern, their job. So it is a lot of money and investment to keep social media going. And Twitter is one that takes us a lot of time because, again, it's not like I can just write a paragraph and slap a photo. Twitter makes you have to format it and all this stuff. But because I'm a journalist, I can't just shut down Twitter, because all the magazines tag my username, and other journalists, Google or look you up on Twitter. So and the return, I actually put a really high return for Twitter because I do get a lot of people who will go from Twitter to my website, or from entrepreneur tweeting about me, they'll go to the pursuit.tv. So the return is actually pretty good. But again, overall, it only scored a 3 out of 9. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing where I look at it and I think, okay, I'm going to have Shatoya, my assistant, spend less time on Twitter, and we'll just tweet less throughout the day. And this is something I did this week, you guys, because I try and do this about once a quarter when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm feeling frazzled, like I don't know what to do next and what's the best use of my time. So LinkedIn is something that was unexpectedly high because people really actually click on your articles on LinkedIn, it turns out. Like there's really high engagement, especially for my entrepreneurship and business articles. A lot of business people are on LinkedIn. And then one thing that scored 8 out of 9 is podcast interviews on other people's shows. Because think about that. Effort, nothing. I like Google them 5 minutes before, I think through my talking points, and I get on. Now it takes 30 minutes to an hour total to actually do the interview, but still that's not very much. And then the investment, again, it scored really well because I don't have to pay anyone or do anything. You know, I just show up. And then the return, I scored it a 2 out of 3 because sometimes, you know, with depending on the podcast, people may never Google you or check you out. But a lot of times if you add a lot of value on someone else's show, then they will at least, you know, go look you up on Facebook or, you know, tweet you on Twitter. So that was something that scored 8 out of 10. So of course, after I did this exercise, I made a note that when I need to give Shatoya, my assistant, I need to have her spend time on researching podcasts I can be on and thinking through who we can pitch and making a pitch schedule. Okay, so now I can look at your, Vicky says, I hate doing this so much. I feel you. It's not fun. It's necessary. It's not fun. Okay, nobody puts Twitter in a corner. I love the chart. Thank you for sharing it in the magazine. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, this went out for free in the monthly magazine that went out last week. And like I said, I pulled just the chart out, just the productivity worksheet, and that is at thepursuit.tv/productivity. Okay, so you can get just that part. Somebody says, we missed the quick pep talks, but we'll forgive you. So let me give you a good, this is a great real world example, okay, you guys. Quick pep talks, everyone says they love them, right? You guys all told me, oh, we love the quick pep talk, we love the quick pep talks. Well, it turns out people weren't really watching them anymore and hardly anyone was commenting anymore. So like, and it definitely didn't do anything towards the show. Like nobody ever went from quick pep talk to look at the Pursuit or to subscribe on YouTube. And, you know, people did not go from a quick pep talk to signing up to my email list. And so, like, they were fun and people loved watching them, but in reality, not that many people were watching them anymore. I think I had done them, you know, for 2 years and people kind of felt like, oh, you know, I've seen this before, or I'll catch up on Kelsey later. And so everyone, and that's another thing, like if you find somebody who's putting out content and you really love it, they will quit putting out that content if you quit responding to them. Because straight up, like I was like, not enough people comment anymore, not enough people share and watch these anymore. It's definitely not going through my flow chart of what my goal is and how I measure the return on investment. So I had to shut them down. That is a great real world example of when it comes to your willpower, you guys, you only have so much you can give every week, right? And it took time and energy and planning to make sure that the quick pep talk was funny. I know that it seems like I'm just naturally really hilarious, and I am. But also, I wrote quick pep talks in my head like you would write a script. So I thought through, how can I add value for people? How can I make it funny? How can I edit it once I'm done shooting it? You know, all of that stuff, guys, that took time and energy. And, you know, I was doing it week after week. Also, it was entertainment. It was warm and fuzzy. But I want to move into, you know, promoting my next book, Success for the Rest of Us. And so the success hacks needed to be a video segment that I'm doing now. And I knew that if I added this, there's no way I could do this and quick pep talks. Does that make sense? So this, in a way, this replaced those. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. You're welcome. Someone said that yesterday. They were just talking about how I share everything. And I mean, I just have been that way since I was young. To the point of like when I was younger, I was definitely one of those oversharers where people were like, well, we did not need to know that. So I'm glad that you guys appreciate that now. Vicky says you have to look at the end goal. She says, I don't know how you do so much. It makes my head hurt. Well, and Vicky, you guys, she has this show called Mompreneur. Is that right, Vicky? Mompreneur podcast. And so Vicky, I mean, one thing I like to tell people is that they need to realize this is my full-time 100% gig. So a lot of times somebody who is writing articles or who has a show also has online courses, and they also have coaching programs, and they're trying to push people into their sales funnel, which is fine, and they're probably making great money doing that. But that's not me. The show and the writing, that is my product. I have no coaching programs. I'm not doing anything else. This is not a side hustle. This is my full-time thing. The other thing, Vicki, is that my daughter's in full-time daycare, okay? So I'm doing this 40 to 50 hours a week. It's not like I'm doing this mornings and afternoons while she's napping, okay? So I really treat this like a full-time, more than full-time job. On the other side of how much I get so much done, I am pretty ruthless on prioritizing things and cutting things that aren't working. Like, for example, the magazine, you guys. I love the magazine, and I have seen really good list growth thanks to the magazine, but I'm watching how many people open the magazine. So if you love the magazine from, November, but you haven't opened them since, I'm telling you, I will pull the plug. Even though I love it. I love having a magazine. I love working with everyone to create it, but it takes a lot of time and effort, and so I will track it and I will cut it. And it will hurt, and I will just have to do it. So that's another way. Also, I do have an assistant who works with me about 20 hours a week, and then we have a social media intern as well. So, yes, I am very focused. Okay, so Vicki, yeah, you, aside from your show, you have clients. Like, obviously, that's going to take priority. And yeah, so do you guys have any questions about prioritizing your work and how to figure out what's the right best thing? I know that Jackie, who I haven't seen her hop on, but she's a comedian, and so I always know when she's on her, she shows up as Jackie Fabulous, and with her and her industry, there's so much she can be doing other than just comedy gigs. And so I hope that she watches this and lists it all out and gives it all a number. We're so wrapped up in our work that this is really, really valuable to actually do this exercise, you guys. Vicki says the magazine is gorgeous, but you got to do what you got to do. Exactly. And what's interesting is I want to tell you guys, honestly, that there are a couple exceptions. So, for example, on this chart, the pursuit itself does not score very high. Because it's freaking expensive, okay? Traveling across the world to interview these people and paying video production crews and paying an editor to help me edit all the video. And sometimes I have to pay for the guest's hair and makeup. I have to buy outfits. I mean, it's expensive, okay? So on my chart, it actually does not score well at all. But it's the foundation of everything we're doing. Like right now, it's the whole kit and caboodle. So I can't just cut it out. Like no one, it's a whole reason why people find me, why they listen to me. It's, it shows that I've done my research, that my success tips are founded in my, 4,000 plus hours of research and interviewing. So I'm not going to cut that even though it scores really low. So I do want to tell you that there are exceptions. Vicki says, how do you keep your guest roster in schedule and have enough guests for every week? I don't have guests every week. I try to do 2 celebrity guests per month, 1 profile guest, which is someone who's not a celebrity but who has a great story. Usually they've made a ton of money or they have a giant business but they don't have a big personal brand. And then the 4th week of every month is a mashup episode. So I'm just pulling from all the other episodes and editing them all together into a mashup episode. And so if I don't book enough celebrity guests, then I will put in more profile guests because it's easier for me to get those smaller profile guests because they want the exposure more than a celebrity does. And then the 4th week I've given myself a break. And this is a very aggressive schedule. Last year, for the first half of the year, I was only doing 1 interview a month. So things have really ramped up. But Vicki was asking about how do I pay for everything. I do have a sponsor. We partnered with FreshBooks. So you'll notice now if you watch the recent episodes, there's commercials. I do a commercial plug for them. I also make money from YouTube. I get paid to write. So my writing articles, I make money from that. And then anytime I do a speaking gig, I make money from that. So that's how I make my money. The actual advertising model, like old school, people pay to advertise through YouTube and paid sponsorships, and then my writing gigs and speaking gigs. So that's how I make my money. Whitney asks, how do I track my time on my tasks? At this point, I do everything pretty systematically, and I don't use like a time tracker. I just know. So, I mean, I know that writing an article is going to take me, depending on the kind of article, 1 to 2 hours. I just know how long things take me because I've been doing this for 2 years now. So I can kind of track things mentally because I just know because I've been doing it. But at the beginning, I definitely recommend using a time tracker app. There's tons of free time tracker apps online and for your phone. Do I track my expenses per interview, per city, per airline? Do I budget? I really wish I was good about budgeting. I've tried to make set budgets. What's really challenging for me is that I go to a city usually, and then I'll build out that city. So if I get a big celebrity in New York, then I pitch a bunch more people in New York and I go to New York. And so for a New York trip, I can kind of guesstimate my budget because I have one videographer that I use there every single time. And then I have someone in LA that I use every time. But like, depending on the time of year, hotels cost different things. And depending on where I stay, you know, I might have to use Uber a lot more. I never use the subway because I'm carting all of my gear with me. Not to mention I have to look camera ready by the time I get there. And so I track everything because I use one business credit card. Whitney, the answer to your question is I use one business credit card and PayPal for everything. And so I can go in every month. Like I just did taxes for this past year, and it wasn't that bad because I can just go through one credit card statement and my PayPal, and I track every single thing. I mean, everything is in there. So then I just categorize it and tally it all up. Vicky, I hope it's okay if I ask, how did you get an Entrepreneur magazine? Oh yeah, you could totally, I've talked about this a lot. If you want to write for a new publication, you need to find the contributors editor, okay? The contributors editor is in charge of picking new contributors and adding to their, portfolio of authors. Now, not every magazine is that way, but Entrepreneur is that way. Now, the person that I worked with when I got into Entrepreneur is not the contributors editor anymore, so it doesn't help. People will write and ask me to connect them personally, and that I can't because he doesn't do that anymore. But what you want to do is reach out to that editor directly. I put the entire article in my email. Don't send any attachments. Just put your article in your email, and then you can list your bio at the end and say, if you'd like my headshot, you can download it here and link to Dropbox. So give them everything. You have to also have other writing credits. So when I wrote for Entrepreneur, I had already done some guest posts, and I had written for smaller websites. So if you haven't written for anything else yet, you can't go from 0 to Entrepreneur or from 0 to success. You've got to write for some smaller websites first. Okay, emails and keeping up with a mailing list is the hardest thing for me, but expanding an email list is the number one tip. Yeah, everybody and their dog says email list is gold. Email list is life. Email list is basically the blood in your veins if you're trying to do anything. So she says, do you think email marketing is necessary, for creating a successful business? Yes. Like I said, that's pretty much the blood in your veins. And Brianna is a musician. And so Brianna, I would spend a lot of time, I would take a day and just research email marketing strategies for musicians because it's different for you. What's really going to get them to want to opt in. And as a fan, I would think, okay, well, I would want to know, when they have a new single out. I would want to know when they're going to be in my town. I would want to know, big news from them. But I don't think a musician is going to be sending weekly emails. That's just me personally. Again, do your own research. But what you would think about is, okay, what can I send once a month that people who love me and my music would really care about? And then, so what you're going to do is you're going to offer something free for people who sign up. So maybe they get a free, unedited, really raw version of one of your singles straight from the studio that's not released anywhere else. The only way they can get it is by signing up to your email list. Thanks guys for all the hearts. And then the next thing you're going to do is tell them, and when you sign up, you're going to get once a month news from me. It's news you care about. It's only things that are important, and it's only once a month. Vicky, how in the world does your husband deal with this? I don't know if my husband would handle this kind of ambitious wife. It's a good question. I have been ambitious since we were teens, and we've been together since we were 16. So he saw this coming. But what's interesting is what I've been driven towards has changed. So when we were younger, I was going to be the next, like Brianna, I was going to be the next Sarah Bareilles. I was going to be a singer-songwriter pop star. And what's interesting is he wasn't that supportive back then. And the reason why is because he could see that I didn't really love it. I wanted to love it. I thought I loved it. And I love music and I love singing, and I will still continue to do that as a hobby. And eventually I want to incorporate it into my show like Jimmy Fallon does, to be totally honest. I want to do like spoofs and creative stuff where I get to sing with superstars. I think that'll be so awesome. I'll just harmonize with them and be their backup singers. But he could see that I didn't love it. I didn't really want to sing at coffee shops. I didn't really want to sing at bars. I didn't really want to sit and practice the piano. That's a red flag, obviously. And so he wasn't that supportive back then. Also, if your spouse is not supportive, it probably means you don't have momentum. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I wasn't really getting anywhere very fast with that goal. And so it was hard for him to stay on board, because it was kind of like, how are we ever going to make money? You know, the second I started this, I had momentum. Like, I was like, hey, I have this idea, you know, do you mind working in with me, and we're going to invest our money. You know, we had to talk about it in creating a pilot episode for this. And he was like, okay, let's try it. And then immediately I had New York Times bestselling authors who said yes. I mean, he was like, this is clear. Like, you know, we're Christians, and it was like, obviously God wants us to do this. You know, if you're not a Christian, you probably still may think like signs from the universe, or, you know, in your gut, whatever. But for us, we just could see it because there was momentum. And that's one thing, you guys, like, if you want to convince your spouse and you want to have results, freaking do this exercise, because you will focus on the things that actually produce results, especially if you look at this and you make what you're measuring actual financial money, okay? Actual return on investment. You know, for me, if it was all about making more money, heck yeah, I would do an online course. Heck yeah, I would be coaching. And heck yeah, I would freaking be trying pitching speaking engagements all the time, and I would be traveling all over the world to speak. Right now, my goal is not to make bank. My goal is to grow my brand and eventually get a book deal and a TV deal, okay? Then, once I get over there, I will focus on making more money. So right now, I just want the show to be paying for itself, and I want to be a well-oiled machine. Vicky, I also feel like we could possibly be best friends. Okay, so does anybody else have any tactical questions about prioritizing, how to figure out? I hope if you haven't yet, go download the sheet, guys, because I give you an example and I write out the instructions, and then I give you multiple pages. Oh, one thing I wanted to add is that you can do these charts for multiple things in your life. So don't just sit here and do this for your business. Like, sit here and do this for your health. If your goal is to be less stressed, have you actually thought about the ways you're reducing stress, the ways you're adding, you know, meditation or calm time or whatever you're doing, and then actually measure the results? Because for me, I mean, trying to meditate, it doesn't work. What I have found that works is I do a workout that's really difficult, and I can't think about anything else except for the moves, or else I will fall over or hurt myself. So that's almost like meditation, because my mind is completely blank. All I'm thinking about is the moves. So I want to tell you that you can do this for multiple areas of your life. Remember, people who are massively successful are not just successful in one area. Eventually they realize they have to invest in their health. Eventually they realize that they have to prioritize their family and their relationships, or else they're successful but depressed, okay? So you could do the same thing with prioritizing your marriage. If your marriage is in trouble, you could do a list of what can we do and how do they measure, how do they score, okay? You cannot argue with pen and paper, black and white scores on the chart. That's what I love about this. If something scores low, it scores low. Like, it doesn't matter how I feel about it. Marissa, I'm guessing you said at the beginning where to get the list. Yeah, that's at thepursuit.tv/productivity. I will put that in the comments. Yeah, so you could do a different chart for your spiritual life, a chart for whatever you're training for, and then a chart for your business. So the different areas of your life, you can do different charts. So, all right, does anybody else have any questions? Because I know we're right at about 35 minutes or so, and these are supposed to just be 30 minutes a week, because I don't want to go too long. But I love that you guys are really enjoying this one. I knew that this would be probably the most practical, like actionable, take this and do it thing we can talk about when it comes to productivity. I do have other productivity hacks I'll be sharing the rest of this month, because February we're focusing on productivity. But like none of it matters if you're doing the wrong things. If you're being really proactive at something that doesn't produce, or really productive at something that doesn't produce results, what is the point? Why are you doing it? All right, I don't see any more comments coming in, but there is a delay. So I'll wait a couple more seconds for anyone else who has any questions. But this one was really digging into, like, you guys just straight up asked a bunch of personal questions and I answered them. So anyone who had questions about the show and how it works and how I make money and how I do everything, you pumped me up. Good. You love these Wednesday live segments. Awesome. See, the live segments, that's one thing where people really engage, and this doesn't take me much investment of time, energy, and effort. So this is a high scoring item on my chart, you guys. Again, the worksheets, if you don't have them yet, I'll put it in the comments. It's thepursuit.tv/productivity. And I'm going to start doing that for each of our sections of things that we're talking about, so that you guys can go and watch a set of videos in one playlist, and you can look at articles and you can dive into all of my little tidbits based on topic. So, all right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. I encourage you to share this. Everyone who got value out of this, please share it, because a lot of people are spending their time on the wrong things, and I don't want that anymore. Even though my hair looks jankety and the lighting is not good and we had all these technical problems, share it anyway. Doesn't matter how I look, right? What matters is the content, and this could change your entire business or your entire hustle or your life if suddenly you start making more money or suddenly you start seeing results because you do this exercise. Okay, I love you guys. And I will be back next week, 10 a.m. Central on Facebook and YouTube. So thanks for watching.